or good morning, depending on where you are. Let's start that again. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending on where you are. Welcome to the second information session for the National Digital Navigator Corps. I'm joined with several of my colleagues today, and we're excited to present on and describe the National Digital Navigator Corps, what the project actually entails, and also we have additional information to add about what the proposal process will look like. So we're going to hope to get through that as fast as we can while making sure that we take enough time to be as descriptive and explicit as we can be, but we're also going to leave a lot of time at the end to answer any questions that you may have for us. I'm going to start my screen share here in just a moment. And while I do that, I'll just go over some housekeeping items. This meeting is being recorded. Okay, this meeting is being recorded. Please mute yourself throughout the period of our presentation. As I said towards the top, I am joined with several of my colleagues from NDIA, so they are here to assist and address any questions that you may have in the chat. The chat is being monitored. We have our eyes on it, and please feel that put any questions that you have there. If myself or any of my colleagues are unclear in describing something, please ask us to clarify. Right, we're always going to be paying attention to that, and then we'll address those questions and more when we get to the Q&A session. So, if you could, we'd like to learn more about you all. So please, in the chat, please feel free to list your name, the organization that you're with, your role within that organization, and your location, your city and state. I'll begin by introducing myself and my co-presenters today. My name is Paula Balboa, Senior Program and Data Manager with NDIA. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and my role, what Senior Program and Data Manager means, is to assist with Digital Navigator support, specifically the data analysis and visualization piece of this program. So that could be helpful in reporting out the efficacy of all of these great projects. I'll send it over to my coworker, Christy, to introduce herself. Christy.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christy Zappi-Ferradino. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Director of Programs and Initiatives at NDIA, and I'm so excited to see so many of you. And I'm going to introduce Abby.
Hi, I am Abby Waldrop, and my pronouns are also she, her. I live in Durham, North Carolina, not too far from Christy, and I manage the Digital Navigator work at NDIA, which is what we're talking about today, is some Digital Navigator work.
All right, thanks all. And I see folks introducing yourselves in the chat. Please continue to do that. We love to see who is in the room, and more importantly, we like to welcome more people into our community. So towards the end of our presentation, we'll describe how to do that. Just want to give you a flavor of what we're going to be discussing today. We're going to start with a brief intro to who we are, the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, and that will transition into a context for how Digital Navigator as a program came to be and what that looks like. From there, I'll send it over to my colleagues to describe what this specific project is all about, and then what that application process will look like for you. So we're going to save a lot of room for that meaty information piece to address any questions that you may have. But very quickly, in case we are new to you, welcome. It's nice to meet you. We are the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. We're a unified voice for home and public broadband, personal devices, and local technology training and support programs. What that means in practice is that we connect with those 700 plus affiliates across the United States plus territories to hear from folks who are doing digital inclusion work on the ground. These are practitioners, advocates, researchers, people who are actually working with their communities to address digital inclusion needs of their communities and neighbors. What we do, our job, is to collect best practices, feedback, trends, and develop tools for the rest of the field. Digital Navigators as a program was born out of our organization's model of listening to folks on the ground. Just really quickly, when the COVID-19 pandemic struck, a bunch of organizations across the country were trying to figure out, how do I continue offering services to my community members when there is a lack of person-to-person contact? What happens when I need to do this over the phone, maybe over a video call, or as the COVID-19 pandemic went on, when they had to schedule appointments, to be more deliberate about what these interactions looked like. And Digital Navigators was a program that was born out of us at NDIA talking to people who were adapting live. And we were talking about, okay, what's working, what's not working. The product of those conversations led to the development of the Digital Navigator model, which we are happy to announce has been piloted across the country for the past year and a half. We are now ready to take this into a more national project realm, and that's what my coworker Christy is going to describe. Christy?
Thanks, Paulo. So I want to talk a little bit more about this amazing funding opportunity. So Google.org has invested $10 million to fund this National Digital Navigator Corps. It's the largest investment that they've made in digital inclusion. So we're beyond thrilled to bring this to our community of partners, affiliates, and new friends to really expand the capacity of digital inclusion work in communities that need that most, specifically those that are in rural and tribal communities. So basically, this National Digital Navigator Corps will provide a digital navigator to 18 communities throughout the United States that specifically serve rural and tribal communities. We're proud to be able to partner with AMERIND Critical Infrastructure, who will be providing support to grantee organizations that are serving tribal communities, and you'll get to meet them in a few minutes. But the intention of the National Digital Navigator Corps, of course, is to provide support and resources and guidance to those who need it most to reduce the barriers to digital inclusion. But because it is a multi-year investment, we also intend that the digital navigators that will be stepping forward to serve their communities will be able to become an expert in their community on digital inclusion and a resource for all that who need them and that community. So I mentioned that it's a $10 million grant from Google.org over 3 years. We are having funding for 18 digital navigators, so one per grantee organization. We'd like a minimum of 6 grantee organizations to be serving tribal communities from Indian country. We are going to have a lot of work around those digital navigators providing support to get devices, access to broadband, and resources in terms of digital literacy skills. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so the grant award ranges per grantee. It's $300,000 to $389,000 over the 3-year term. The digital navigator will serve a term of service for 31 months, providing digital navigation services to their community. The grant funds will include financial support for 1 full-time digital navigator, including fringe benefits, also support for the organization itself in terms of program management, say the support of a director, communications team, communications person, and then also someone who's going to be able to support our data collection and analysis needs. The digital navigators themselves will have a series of forms that we use to collect information on the interaction between the community member and the digital navigator. So we will want someone on staff within that grantee organization to help us collect the information and work with Paulo and his team on analysis. I also mentioned there is funding so that the digital navigator and that grantee organization can distribute actual computer devices to members in their community. It's about $20,000 per year. We would work with the grantees to work with computer refurbishers within our network to find the best devices for the community, depending on the needs of the community members and what's available. The grant award also includes travel to NDIA's Net Inclusion Conference, which is usually held in the spring each year, as well as regional meetings. We really want to make sure that these digital navigators have all the opportunities that they need to really thrive and succeed in bringing digital inclusion services to their community. Next slide. Thank you. So I mentioned a few times now that it's really important to us that the grantee organization and the Digital Navigator get the support that they need. So we really are developing a national cohort of digital navigators across the country. And this, of course, is in addition to our wonderful core that I shouldn't refer to it as a core, but the Digital Navigator Working Group at NDIA, which has a couple hundred members, practitioners, digital navigators. And I see some of you on this call this afternoon, so I'm happy to see your faces. So you'll be joining these digital navigators as part of the national core, and the partner organizations will be able to join the National Digital Navigator Working Group. But we're also going to be having a variety of training, support, resources specifically for the National Digital Navigator Corps, and really leveraging relationships that we have with our digital inclusion practitioners, partners, researchers, and thought leaders. So there will be a variety of opportunities for mentorship and guidance from some of the preeminent organizations working in this space from throughout the country. There's quarterly training sessions. A lot of that will be done virtually, or also used to working over Zoom, and there will be some in person as well. And lots of networking opportunities. We look forward to bringing you all, if you are new to our community, into the fold to work with our network across the country. Here's a little bit of information on the requirements and expectations for grantees, which is my next slide. Again, it's a 3-year commitment from the grantee. Starting in August 2022, we'll have our first kickoff meeting, and then it goes through August 2025. It's about a 31-month service commitment for the Digital Navigator. We will be providing all of the training to that Digital Navigator to make sure that they have what they need to be successful in their community and work with their target audience. Again, we'll have lots of online meetings. We do expect everyone who is selected to be a grantee to participate fully in our online meetings. We'll have a Slack channel, so we have regular communication, and then also to share lessons learned and challenges with the cohort so that we can work together and basically take everything that's going to be coming out of this National Digital Navigator Corps to share and refine with our community as a whole. Because as you can imagine, the number of digital navigator opportunities that are popping up just in the past, I'd say 3 weeks, has grown exponentially. We also will require attendance at our in-person national and regional events. And again, that one main national event is NDIA's Net Inclusion. We'll have a pre-conference right before that Net Inclusion kicks off to bring everybody together. And we're so excited about that. And the Net Inclusion conference will actually be this spring, so 2023 in San Antonio. We also will require interim and final reports so that we'll have regular communication with you to make sure that everything is going well and troubleshoot as needed, and also make sure that the digital navigators are up to date on what's going on in terms of ACP or other opportunities or other digital literacy skills training opportunities that's going on. So with that, I'm delighted to introduce you to my newest colleague, Davida Del Mar, who's with AMERIND Critical Infrastructure, who is going to be partnering with us and providing a lot of support to the grantees that are serving tribal communities. So with that, hello, Davida.
Hi, everyone. Yes, so my name is Davida Del Mar. I am a citizen of the Navajo Nation. I am new to ACI, AMERIND Critical Infrastructure, but I am not new to digital inclusion. I used to help students apply to colleges, or used to help tribal folks get engaged within Constitution revision and things like that at the Native Nations Institute. So I'm excited to join the NDIA team and AMERIND team to create this great program where we're hopeful to support a lot of folks in tribal lands and tribal communities who really need this and who can benefit a lot in terms of how they are spearheading their infrastructure needs as well as their digital skills needs. So real quick, we are part of AMERIND Risk Corporation, but we are a leg of that, AMERIND Critical Infrastructure. So our team has a unique blend of experience in federal broadband policy rules and funding, actually over 20 years of experience. And of course, we specialize in business development as well. We also provide legal, business, governance, regulatory, network design, and corporate advice and strategic planning too, in terms of the digital infrastructure that you want to give to your community. My role, of course, is the digital inclusion manager. So I'm helpful in terms of building this network of digital navigators in tribal communities. And so if you want more information or if you want to connect with me, I'm here and can connect you with other folks that we are working with and build this network of digital inclusion in Indian country. So thank you.
Thanks, Davida and Christy. So now that we've talked a little about what a digital navigator is and what grantees can expect to receive and do as part of the program, we've gotten to the nitty-gritty of how the process will go for selecting grantees and who can apply. So some of this we covered in a previous information session, but we have some more detail today. Those who can apply for this opportunity are community-based organizations and local agencies that serve rural and tribal communities. So this is really a place-based project. And so part of the qualification for participating is that, that the communities being served by the applying organization are rural or tribal groups. So on the next slide, there's a little more information about how rural is defined, and it is using the definition from the Census Bureau. So those that are not urbanized areas, urban clusters would be qualified as rural communities. So organizations that serve these communities would be qualified to apply for this opportunity. And I should say that these are not both required. So looking here at the rural description, if this does describe the groups that your organization serves, then you would be qualified to serve. And then on our tribal definition, we start with a definition of tribal lands from the FCC, but we're also a bit more broad and inclusive to include some off-reservation tribal trust lands, and organizations that serve primarily Indigenous people are also going to be considered for this. So if your organization serves either rural or tribal communities, then you would be qualified to apply. We are also using a we're prioritizing organizations that are closer to these areas. So organizations that are based in rural areas or in tribal communities that are staffed by members of those communities would receive a higher priority than communities or organizations that serve these communities from a different location or with less involvement. So there is kind of a ranking of priority based on the tribal and rural definitions here. Okay, so on our next slide, we can see where we are right now in the process. We are currently accepting letters of intent from interested organizations. These are sort of a briefer form. It's an online form. It just has a few questions about what your organization is, who you are, and who you would target for this project, who your target audience is currently, what kind of work you do with that group right now, and what you would want to do or who you would want to focus this project on or work in this grant on. The purpose of this letter of intent is to reduce the amount of effort that folks need to put forth without being sure if they would be a highly prioritized organization for this grant opportunity. So this is a chance to submit a briefer application and receive a recommendation as to whether or not it would be a good idea to move forward with the full proposal later in the summer. So after this, we can see the next few steps that we have in our process. Once letters of intent are due on May 20th, they will be reviewed, and organizations that submitted those LOIs will be notified about whether or not we recommend moving forward with a full proposal based on a few areas of qualification, such as serving rural and tribal communities and a need for digital inclusion in those targeted audiences. And then for the month of June, full proposals will be accepted, and we will hold some additional information sessions and opportunities to get your questions answered once we get to that full proposal stage. And then in the end of July, grantees will be selected and notified and ready for kickoff in August. There's more information. So when more webinars are available, or when you have additional questions that you want to look at the request for proposal overview or the LOI instructions, you can find all of those at digitalinclusion.org/navigator, which is a link that we can share in the chat. So if the next steps for you are not necessarily to apply for this grant, or if they are to apply for this grant, our next slide will show you another possible next step, which might be joining the NDIA community. So if you haven't already joined, it's free as a friend or affiliate to join our active listserv, where you can get more context for digital inclusion work, more feedback about digital navigators, and learn more about this area. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, I would highly recommend it. The listserv is very active and very generous in answering questions when you have them, and we have monthly calls for the community that cover different topics, up and coming topics and things that are coming up quickly. So as yesterday, for example, we heard some updates about the Affordable Connectivity Program and some things that ISPs are working on. So that would be the kind of thing we would talk about in a community call. And of course, we also have events such as our conferences that you can sign up for, and different kinds of webinars there as well. So that concludes the presentation that we had prepared. So if you have questions about what we've said or what we haven't said, go ahead and put them in the chat and we will start answering them now.
As you're doing that, I'll just add a little bit more information about the letter of intent. We really, again, to reiterate what Abby had said, we really want to give people kind of a feeling of what we're looking for. We don't want people to have to do a full proposal, full application when it's not exactly the target community we're trying to seek. A big thing for us too is to make sure that the organization who's seeking to become a grantee is organizationally ready to commit to a 3-year term. That's a big deal. And then to make sure that they're serving the audience that is the target for us at google.org. Vishnu.
I had a question. Is there any kind of commitment from the organization in terms of, like, certain grants have rules where you have to put in certain amount and match to the grant? Is there any kind of requirement like that in this particular grant?
No, there is not. And that's why we are covering the salary for the 3 years for that digital navigator, salary plus fringe. And there's a range based on what is needed for a livable and a great wage in your community, and then support for that organization to support the digital navigator and those services. So no, there's no match. Now, if you as an organization have extra funds to dedicate to support the program, that's fabulous, but that's not something we're looking for or counting at in the rubric. What we are looking at is the organization able to deliver this program over the term. And just because you're a small organization doesn't mean you're not ready. Again, that's why we're really trying to extend our reach, reach as many organizations as possible. Thank you for your question, Vishnu.
Thank you.
There's a whole bunch more. So Paula, I'm going to have you go through them.
I have a question I've pulled out. Oh, sorry, Paula.
I think you're about to do it. Go ahead.
So a couple of questions about partnering, organizations working together. And Christy, feel free to jump in logistically how you think this would work. But part of the full proposal is talking about what partnerships would be important to the project. And so that will be something that we would want most grantees to consider. But I think we would need a lead organization to be the one that applies for the grant directly. Christy, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, there's a question about from Sheila Faulkner, Oregon Secretary of State. Do we know what tribes have connected?
So as far as I know, not a lot of tribes have been connected. So it's right now we're making the initial push to tribal organizations and tribal groups and everything. And so this digital inclusion, network doesn't necessarily exist in Indian country, so we're trying to create it. So any information you like in terms of pushing this out to a perfect person or perfect organization who would fit this would be great. Happy to talk to them and happy to tell them more about this opportunity. So please reach out, and I can put my information in the chat as well. So so as far as I know, not yet, but we're still in the early stages, of course. So that doesn't mean there's no there's no interest. There's a lot of interest out there. We just want people to get involved, and we plan to like push this out during the RES conference and of course NCAI and some great, social networks, networks just like that. Sorry.
Thanks, Davida. I noticed Sheila, you have your hand up. Do you want to add to your question?
Okay, thanks, Davida. I'll just work through the questions, and I see Lisa, you have your hand raised as well. I'll get to you. And just for our part, our partnership with AMERIND Critical Infrastructure is crucial to us being able to work with communities in Indian countries. So, with Davida and the team's help over there, we're hoping to have a broader reach. I'm going to call or address Kathy's question. What are these expected outcomes / targets from the implementation of the Digital Navigator program? These are listed in the proposal, but just a top line rundown of expected outcomes. Targets is that the Digital Navigator reaches a certain amount of community members per month to expand the reach of the overall impact of the program on folks' lives. I think this addresses a few questions that I see farther down the chat as well about device distribution. There is funding provided in the project for organizations to distribute the.
Did we lose Paulo? Or is that just me?
So you want to ping him
to see what the specific need is there.
Great. Thank you, Paulo. One of the other things I wanted to mention too, and I see a whole bunch of questions coming in the chat around the expertise of the applicant. We're not expecting that all applicants will have digital inclusion expertise. We will be providing training and access to resources to get you the information that you need so that your digital navigator becomes an expert in your community. So you could be, I don't know, an organization that is new to us, but you definitely have a demonstrated need in your community, people not having access to devices or access to affordable broadband or information on how to seek opportunities to learn digital literacy skills. So you do not have to be an expert in digital inclusion in order to apply.
All right, let's bounce around. Lisa, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Hi, I'm Lisa Sutherland, and I work with the Alaska Federation of Natives, which serves 229 Indian tribes in Alaska, almost half the tribes in the country. And we just got a digital inclusion use and adoption grant from NDIA to serve our tribes. And I think we have a total of over 100 kind of tribes, tribal organizations, Indian housing providers, Native health organizations, and Native nonprofit groups. And we're kind of scared. We've never done this before, and so we're new to it. I wanted to understand. I asked a question in the chat about technical support, but also for the digital navigator, is that someone that we hire? Is that someone that you've already hired and trained? And if we hire the person, how do they get trained? So we have someone who knows what they're doing as we implement this grant.
Great question. Great questions, Lisa. We expect the grantees will hire a new hire as a digital navigators in most cases, and we will be training them on how to be a digital navigator and digital inclusion in general. And that is our hope, that the digital navigator will be selected from the community that's being served, and that at the end of these 3 years, there will be a local digital inclusion expert from this project.
Do they come to you for training? Is that training online? And if we had because we're going to hire a group of digital navigators, can we get our other digital navigators trained by you? Is that something that can be arranged, or how does your training work?
Go ahead, Christy.
I can answer that. So we will train the one digital navigator that is part of this grantee opportunity. And then we, NDIA, do offer consulting for other digital navigator training that we could do for you and consult with you separately on that.
So if we wanted to do a consulting thing with you, we just get in touch with you and say, help.
Yes, I'll put my email in
Okay.
the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Christy.
Hey, Lisa, I also want to say congratulations on that grant. That's like huge news. And
Yeah.
My hope is also to create a network between those folks who, have received NTIA grants and who are working towards this effort. One actually in my neighborhood, the Gila River Indian community is also at the same level, who are like, we have this great funding and where do we start? So hopefully we can work together and navigate this process. So
Yeah,
good to meet
I'd
you.
love to do that. Actually, we've done a lot of kind of tribal consultations with NTIA, and your organization's name has come up in several of our chats. So
Awesome. Good. Thanks, Lisa.
Great. Last thing, and then about on this topic, and then I'm going to call on more folks regarding this is bouncing off of Lisa's question, which is great, and then Gwen's most recent question in the chat about Digital Navigator. Are they either existing staff or specifically a new hire? Can be either one. I'm just going to put in the chat a link to a document called a baseline job description that our community helped create and design. So that gives you an idea of what are the roles and background of a typical digital navigator. So I hope that helps. I'll call on Fatima. Fatima.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm in California, so it's good morning still. So I have two questions. The first question is, I live in our organization is in Inland Empire, Moreno Valley, and during these 2 past years of the COVID, we assessed our community, and we know that there are dead zones where the internet is not available for specific cities, and mostly we're working with immigrants and indigenous from Central America. So do you think, can we apply for this? Because I received an email saying this only for LA, Los Angeles, and I am in Inland Empire. I just want to make sure that we might qualify to be part of this grant.
So a couple of things that I may have not gotten them all written down. So Christy and Paula, jump in if I missed parts, or let me know, Fatima. But this is for any rural location or organization that serves tribal communities across the United States. So there's not a requirement. I know that LA County has some digital navigator projects. They may have gotten some information about that as well. And I know the term digital navigator is very popular, which is great because it's a very popular flexible model, but sometimes the messaging gets confusing with the same name. This is to go to one of your other questions, this is primarily about getting people connected to internet that exists and to learn digital skills and get devices that are appropriate for them. And it is not building infrastructure. So if there is not internet available in a location, this is not a grant that could help build that internet to that location. But it still might be useful to the areas that do have access to some amount of broadband.
Okay, because we were helping getting connected to hotspots, Wi-Fi, and also at the same time they come to us to, like, for everything. We provide digital literacy trainings through different district schools. So I have a little experience of that. And we really think this grant is gonna be really helpful to my community. So we're gonna be applying. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's great. Yeah, and I will say devices, mobile hotspots also count as device. So if that's a way that you're getting folks connected in your communities, and it's a great idea. So I see Deidre has their hand raised. Deidre.
Hi, my name is Deidre Dallas. I'm located on the Hopi Reservation, and I wanted to know if your organization would be the ones handling the salary funds for the digital navigator. Just because for our tribe, for any kind of grant money is used for salaries, they're taking 30.08% for the indirect cost rate. So if you could help me answer that.
So I'll direct that question to Christy.
Yes, I was coming off mute. So the original intention is to give the grant money directly to the grantee, which includes the full salary. If there's some type of special need that the grantee will have, we'll work with you on that to figure it out. But if you haven't already, please email myself, Abby, and or Davida, so we can figure out if we can come up with a solution before you apply.
Okay, and then another question that I had, because I would be working here on the Hopi Reservation with the Hopi Public Library, but another way that we wanted to kind of go around that indirect cost rate was possibly having the Navajo County Library District handle the funding instead. But within the Navajo County Library District, there are other libraries that aren't tribal libraries, and so I wasn't sure if that we would be able to qualify going that route, even though I would be serving tribal libraries. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So just be clear in your LOI about any special circumstance, and we were happy to figure out a solution with you on that. But that is a unique circumstance outside of how we developed the grant distribution in our mind, but we're happy to figure out and make some allowances, because again, the main intent here is to get people connected in rural and tribal communities. So if there's barriers that we hadn't identified as we were developing and designing this, we need to figure out a solution. So just please send us just a quick little note so we think about that, and then mention that in the LOI if you do submit it.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that. And because we were, there are other tribal libraries that are included in that. I know that a digital navigator position could support those communities as well within the Navajo County Library District, and that includes Navajo and White River. They have libraries within that district too that we would want to kind of serve along with Hopi. Thank you.
Thanks, Deirdre.
Thanks, Deidre. So I see a few variations of a question asking about like geographic priority or regional priority for this grant. Right now, no, we invite, if given the context of our information session, if you are able, if you qualify to apply, then please apply. We're not placing any sort of priority in any given way. We invite anyone to apply for this grant because the need, as we all know, is everywhere. So I hope that addresses that. I want to ask Jeffrey's question for the group as well. Jeffrey from Mission Ignite asks, so for the purpose of this grant, would it benefit the most local partners to be the lead, even if they may not be the partners who are necessarily the organizations with the most capacity or experience with digital inclusion activities? Variation of this question that we heard in the last information session was, for instance, if I work for a big state university, can I take this grant and then distribute it to a satellite campus in a rural area? So just sort of like a capacity question. Who should lead this? I will send that to Abby.
I thought you were queuing up a great answer there, Paulo. I kind of think there may be, these are related, what you said, Paulo, in the question in the chat. In most cases, we would like to see an organization that is in the community that's being served, identified as a single location to be the applicant. We do think that people or organizations who don't have a lot of experience with digital inclusion would still be good applicants, because there will be a lot of capacity building in that area and a lot of training in that area that will benefit them if they are an organization where it makes sense. They're already serving a community that would benefit from digital inclusion. It aligns with their mission, and we're providing the ability to do that. I think looking back to Deidre's question about if the capacity is about managing the funds and if there are some logistical issues, there may be a situation that we would consider in which a larger entity could be the grantee, as long as a specific location is identified as the target community and that the work will be happening in that specific location. Did that answer all of the parts, Paulo?
I believe so. And Jeffrey, just give me a thumbs up, thumbs down if great. Yeah, just to build upon that, a big one of the stated goals of this grant is to build digital inclusion capacity in communities where that doesn't exist. So building on Lisa's question from a few moments ago, right? Like if you are new to digital inclusion, then that is fine. Like we recognize that we're the experts. We're like, there will be trainings involved, there will be technical assistance. We're digging deep on our bench of experts who are in our field to sort of act as these mentor figures throughout the course of this grant. So we want there to be digital inclusion expertise where there was not digital inclusion expertise before. And that's, we don't want to, we don't want to scare anyone away if this is a world or a field that is new to you. In fact, we welcome you. So.
I'll also add that we are answering these questions a little bit vaguely, and there's always if there's a special situation, just let us know and we'll work it out. And that may not be the definitive answer that you're looking for, but that is part of why we're doing this letter of intent step, because it is a lower amount of effort for you to put forward to get a more definitive answer about your exact situation. So if you're still not sure after we've given these kind of caveats about local versus a larger organization and what rural exactly is, go ahead and complete that letter of intent. Hopefully it won't take you very long, and you've got a few days to do it, and that way we can take a look at your situation and give you a better answer exactly about that scenario. And now we're scrolling through the chat for more questions.
Great question from Penelope. Penelope asked in the chat, can the end user keep the device? Yes, yes, they get to keep the device, and that's huge, right? Like that's one of the things that we're so excited about the Digital Navigator program. This isn't, a lending. There's no rules or there's no strings attached. The device is theirs, and we're happy to get that device in the hands of households and individuals that could really benefit from that permanent ownership. Still scrolling up in chat. I think I'm answering everything, but if not, just feel free to use the hand raising function to flag that for us. Just put your question in the chat again. If I skipped you, I'm sorry if I did. Anna, I saw you raised your hand. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you for that. Just to be clear, I put it in the chat, but I just wanted to make sure I was clear. It talks about who can apply, and it says established community-based organizations. I heard your answer. Can state agencies apply for this money who partner with agencies? For instance, can the court system apply, or our Office of Children and Family Services apply? It says in your website, social service agencies. For us, that's a state agency.
So we have mostly been thinking about that in terms of, we've been saying local agencies. And so that like local branch or location would be what we would be looking to identify in your application. But if it would need to, kind of what we were saying, if there's some logistical reasons that they wouldn't be the applying organization, it would just be important to identify which location is being served, which rural community or tribal community would be served locally.
Okay, V has a question in our chat. Do you currently have any partners or members in Hawaii at the moment? Yes, we do. Yeah, in our community. So we count a partner or a member of our community as an affiliate. We have a member of the broadband office from Hawaii as a part of our community. His name's Bert Lum. He's very vocal and very excited about this work. And he tunes into our East Coast 1 p.m. calls like a champ. So yeah, Bert's amazing.
And we'll also put the join link in the chat. If you're not a member of our community, we encourage you to do so. Again, there's a free version and a paid version. Both versions provide excellent opportunity to engage and access our resources. So we will stay the NDIA team along with Davida, will stay on the call if you have other questions. If you don't, feel free to hop off. We really appreciate you taking this afternoon/morning, depending where you are, to spend some time with us. And again, send us any questions that you may have. Abby has a whole bunch of emails listed there for you, and you have them also within the PowerPoint deck. We will post the recording on that project page. And again, we will transcribe any questions that were posted or asked with answers and listed as a Word document on that resource page. Thank you all and have a wonderful rest of your day.